It's pipes, drums, and we are really happy today to be talking about teaching older pipers and drummers, older players who want to get involved with the instrument and maybe changing attitudes or where we are right now in the piping and drumming world. So we're really pleased to have with us today Jori Chisholm of bagpipelessons.com coming to us from Seattle, Margaret Dunn from the National Piping Center in Glasgow, and Andrew Douglas from Dojo University, coming to us from Albany, New York. So thanks a lot, everybody, for taking the time today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting conversation, I'm sure. We'll do this in two parts, and we've thought a lot about an aging population, different things that are going on, maybe different opportunities for, let's say, pipers and drummers over the age of 40. So I wanted to tackle this one about teaching. Margaret, let's start off with you, Margaret. Have you seen a change over the last, I don't know, let's say 10 to 20 years in attitudes about older people taking up the pipes?
I think there's certainly more opportunities for pipers of any age to learn the pipes now. Lots of online platforms, so it's easier definitely to access good quality tuition. And in Scotland, over the last 20 years, the National Piping Centre has developed the CLASP initiative, which is a competition league for amateur solo pipers. So it's for adults of a certain level, and it gives them a platform to compete in a series of graded competitions throughout the year, both actually online and in person now. So it's definitely a good opportunity for adult amateur pipers to perform.
Jori, what about you? What have you seen? You've been involved in teaching quite a bit with out in the Pacific Northwest. What have you seen over the last 20 years?
Yeah, so really the big change has been access to online instruction. And I registered my website in 1999, so I'm in my 25th year here, and I started teaching online with webcams in 2003. And that has really been a huge change, not only for the piping world, but for, just the world broadly, in terms of being able to find your community, being able to connect with a teacher that, it doesn't matter where you live. There's no geographical restrictions anymore. And because of that, you have a whole bunch of pipers who are top level pipers and teachers that are doing this, pretty actively. Some of us full-time, some of us, with other jobs, but it's really a wonderful thing to have all these great instructors around the world teaching. And you can come up with a big list of them. And back when I was starting in the early 2000s, there weren't many of us. I didn't have a role model to look to. My mentors and my piping heroes all had day jobs, and they were obsessed with piping on the side and teaching a little bit on the side. So I think it's a wonderful thing that people can make a living teaching, and people can connect with any number of really high quality teachers. Doesn't matter where you live. That's really been the big thing. And I would say that pipers are really obsessed with piping, at different levels, but we really get into our hobbies, and amateurs can be just as intense and focused and dedicated to playing pipes as a professional. And what this allows you to do is find your instructor, find your community, and just immerse yourself in it. So I think that's just absolutely a wonderful thing for our community, for our music, for this, subculture.
And Andrew, I mean, that Jori raises kind of an interesting point, and Margaret too. I think maybe less emphasis on the competition thing. Are you seeing older players, more acceptance of older players who just want to make good music as well as they possibly can?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Excuse me, and I think I would just pick up where Jori left off. When I was a kid, it would be difficult to name very many instructors that did it full time, that didn't have a day job. And I think now that, I know I do this for a living, Jori does as well. And Margaret, I think as well, like we're all teaching bagpipes for a living. And then suddenly I think the quality of teaching, particularly outside of the solo competition realm, I think I've seen that quality shoot up worldwide as well, in the sense that maybe we're communicating ideas to the hobbyist or to someone who's just interested in the basics of music making on the bagpipes, as opposed to like, getting all your pibrochs going and your MSRs. I think the communication of the key concepts has really improved as well, probably resulting in adults having a better time when it comes time to picking up something that they're keen on learning.
Mm-hmm. And when we stay with you, Andrew, what kinds of things do you think challenges, maybe if we say that, or differences do you see in beginners at age 18 and older, or whatever age and older? Are there different challenges versus someone, say, 10 years old starting?
Yeah, it definitely seems to be that way. And then there's always the argument whether or not children learn faster than adults. And I'll leave that to the experts. But one thing I definitely see, and it's something I see from myself, maybe when I'm trying to pick something up, maybe not specifically bagpipes, but I think you sort of have an attachment to how good you think you should be at a certain juncture. And so it's a lot easier to get frustrated and rather than just kind of taking it one step at a time and enjoying the process. I think I'd be interested to hear what others have to say about that.
Margaret, what about you? What do you think?
I think when you start learning as an adult or a young adult in particular, I think sometimes challenges can be maybe finding a practice location if you're just left for uni or left home for the first time, balancing work life, having enough time to practice is part of the challenge as well. But I think on the positive, it's good when you're teaching an adult, at least, they're there because they want to be there. They're keen, they want to learn. Nobody's pushing them to be there. And personally, I really enjoy teaching all students, but I really enjoy teaching adults as well for that reason. It's not really, for me, it's not, can they play at the top level? I think setting realistic goals and working with the student to achieve those, whatever it may be, playing at their son or daughter's wedding or playing in the clasp or, doing an exam, whatever it may be, just, I find it rewarding just kind of working with them and just trying to reach their goals.
Yeah, and the time management piece, never really thought of that. I think that's a really good point. Do you see that too, Jori? Like adult learners, this is exactly what they want to do, and they're going to put aside the time to do it.
Yeah, so I'd say the typical person who comes to me for lessons as an adult, this is something they've been thinking about for a while, and it's similar to my story. I was started when I was a kid, but you hear bagpipes and it calls out to you and you don't exactly know why. There's this idea that the instrument chooses the player as opposed to the other way around. And I think, I didn't grow up in a piping family. I didn't grow up in a piping hotbed or anything. And I think that's the way it is for a lot of people. And it's just, it calls out to you. And then you've been thinking about it for a while. And then you find your instructor, whether it's through a local pipe band or through your association, or you find somebody online. And this is something you really want to do. Aside from the few of us who do piping as a living, everybody else does it for the joy. And I like to sit down with my students and figure out, like, what is it about this that you want to do? And sometimes this is right at the very beginning, or sometimes this is at some point in their piping journey, trying to like sort of rekindle that initial inspiration, or sit down and make a plan, or cultivate a vision for how to move forward with this thing that they're interested in. What do you want to do? Is it about competition? Is it about performances? Is it about travel? Is it about connecting to your culture and your heritage? Is it about personal development? There's lots of things that go into it that are not just the, maybe the track that the four of us came on, which is start young, super motivated, super driven, want to win stuff, want to achieve in that sort of competition realm. There's this whole other world of piping, which is, I do this for fun. I do this because I love the music. I do this because this is a challenge. I do this because I want to sound like that thing that I heard. I want to go up on this hill and play up here and have that feeling. I think, you can, like, there's a lot of stuff written about how young people learn different from adults. And there are definitely some challenges. There's like with learning an instrument or a sport or a language, there's this critical period. And I don't know where the cutoff is, somewhere in the mid-teens, maybe. But when you're sitting with a student, you don't need to think about all that. You don't need to think about population-wide statistics. You're dealing with one student. So that's what I want to look at, is sort of like, you have an N of one. Where do we go from here? And the adult beginner brings a lot to the table that a young person doesn't. Margaret talked about they're super motivated. It's their money. It's their time. They're committed to it. They're willing to make the sacrifices to it. And, the time management is there. I always love to hear from my adult students something about their lives, because that informs me in terms of, okay, if this person has really accomplished something in their professional life or in their educational background, you can tap into that. You can understand, okay, this person knows about hard work, or this person understands the importance of, sustained effort over time and incremental progress, or overcoming hurdles, or whatever. So I find I love teaching my young kids, but there it's like a lot of life lessons. You're sort of like trying to like coach them up on delayed gratification and time management. Whereas with some of your older students, they bring all that life experience to the table, and that can really help their piping journey.
So on that note, maybe is there a difference between, let's say, people older than 40, Jori, than say someone 18, a young adult versus a more mature adult? Do you see a big difference in that? Is it, you tell me, but can it be like the midlife crisis? Doing something that, I really want to do. I want to buy that red sports car, and I want to learn to play the bagpipes.
Yeah, so I wouldn't frame it in a midlife crisis red sports car thing, because that has sort of like a negative connotation. Like this would be something frivolous, or something that's just going to be short-lived. But there's this kind of archetype of a student, which is they have a practice genre, and they've had it for decades, and it's been on a shelf, and they've looked at it, and they've had this feeling, and maybe they've had a career thing. A lot of times, like, okay, my kids are finally out of the house. It's a little bit of me time now. And this is something that like they want to, this is something they've thought about for a long time. I taught a guy who took up piping in his retirement. He was 70 years old, and he was one of my favorite students I ever taught. He loved pibroch. He just wanted to learn as many pibrochs as he could, didn't want to compete. He actually never played for anybody except himself and in his lessons. And he loved it. It was this journey of like musical discovery and personal growth, and I just thought that was such a great idea. And he was very upfront. I'm retired. I want to do something that I enjoy. I want to keep my manual dexterity. I want to help sort of keep myself active. I want to keep my brain sharp. We all come to this from different places, and that's what I try to do with my students, is figure out, where are you? What's your life story? Why do you want to do this? And how can we make this a fun, enjoyable, sort of satisfying experience as part of your life?
Mm-hmm. Andrew, like thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have at our Dojo University, we have a lot of clients sort of to Jori's point, with a little bit of extra time, maybe a little bit of discretionary income. And so they decide to take up the pipes. And I think everything that's been said so far really resonates with me as well. Definitely a lot of people who have achieved highly in their life in other areas. And then from there, it's kind of, you sort of have to, I think you're in the position where you can sort of translate from their life experience, sort of translate to how that would apply to mastering the fickle instrument, with all its different moving parts and simultaneous things that we have to be able to do. Just sort of restructuring that and reworking that for an adult, mindset is a great challenge, but also I think we're seeing a lot more of that. And resultantly, I think we're seeing a lot more success in that age demographic.
And it comes to mind, Margaret, that, you already talked about a piping hotbed. There's no hotter bed than Glasgow for instruction. But you're someone, Margaret, who's taught overseas. You're in high demand all over the place. Do you see a difference in kind of attitudes, Scotland versus North America, let's say?
I think whenever, so for example, I taught at a school in Switzerland 2 weeks ago, and there was quite a big number of students on the school, maybe like 60, and one was probably under 18. So it was just all adult learners. So, and I'm just thinking about the schools that, when I do go overseas, I think it is probably majority of adults attending them. Only in Switzerland, there would have been no school only for the adults. So I think, the adults are obviously keeping it going, maybe obviously finding it hard to attract younger students in certain countries to take it up. So I mean, I don't see attitudes being an obstacle when learning the pipes. I haven't experienced it or heard anyone talking badly of an older person learning to play the pipes. That good on them. It's a challenging instrument no matter what age you are. So yeah, hats off.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, why don't we let's wrap it up there. Come back in part two. We'll continue the discussion. And you've raised some really good points about attitudes and perceptions, and stay tuned for part two.